Hi, welcome back to Things for Your Concern. You're here with Brittany Set.
And I'm Ella. How are you, baby girl? What's good?
And God, I feel like, I don't know if you've noticed, but like every week I say my name a little more in Spanish. I'm
I
fully
love that.
transitioning back to being Mexican. Listen,
Girl, stand on business.
assimilation is hard to overcome, okay? That's funny. No, I'm okay. Currently I'm dying. I sound a lot better than I did a few days ago though. I just came back from EDC Orlando.
Was it fun?
It was fun. I will say I was a little nervous about going to Florida like post election just because like the vibes are different there, and I think it was chill, like it was cool. I've been to Florida before, I've been to Orlando before, been there for a festival. It's hot as hell. Like I'm just not a
Yeah.
Florida girly. Like I'm just not, and that's okay. But I try it every time. And then the festival itself, you know how they do it. They just overpack it. But I already knew that I was going to be in those conditions, so I was prepared for that. What I wasn't prepared for was the problematic behavior by some of these people. Like I don't know if it was like
Mm.
local or like what, but like I don't know if I was just like hyper aware going into it that I just like
Mm-hmm.
overheard some conversations that I was like, what a stupid comment. Like lack of self-awareness. I saw a lot of people wearing like indigenous headdresses, which I was shocked by because that used to be a trend literally 10 years ago, right? So I was like, I thought we
Legitimately.
like I had already thought we had overcome this, and like I just as a community, I hate being associated with shit like that because I just like no, that's not a representation of who I am. But as like the rave scene gets more popular, more people come on board. Therefore, it is a reflection of me. You know what I mean? And so sometimes I'm just
Yeah.
like, can you not make me look like a giant fuck? Because I don't see myself this way. Yeah.
Word. I mean, honestly, love the rave community. I went to Caribou, which is like indie electronic. Are you familiar?
No.
Caribou.
Send it
So it's like
over.
indie electronica, but I went to a rave, and me and my cousin both were like, we've been to a bunch of like EDM concerts and raves recently, and we're like, God, this kind of sucks that they're inaccessible to people with epilepsy. Like you literally just can't go, like the last like 5 raves I've gone to, I like we both have like noticed, and I was like, that's such an easy fix, but it's like one of those like weird things that you're like, oh, there's some room for improvement in this community. Like we could be more accessible. We could have more accessible venues for all people. There's
Yeah.
rarely like, oh, I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, as the community gets bigger, it's like let's do a little bit more.
100% ableism is like a really big. I mean, you just think about that all the time. Like there's no room to do anything. Like there's a
Yeah,
possibility of crowd surges. There's like so many ways that like that place is just not accessible for people. 100%.
yeah.
So there is room for growth, and I think as I get older, I obviously see that more as I barely even drank at this festival, so it was really like aware,
Mm-hmm.
but in a good way. I don't know which festival will be my last. So every festival I go to, I try to be like very well. You never know. You know what I mean? Like I'm getting older, Ella. Okay, and I don't think I'm ever gonna be like this is gonna be the last festival I ever go to. So I just make sure I'm present. I have a moment to myself. I'm really enjoying the experience for what it is. I'm taking it all in, and I'm also like reflecting if this is the environment I want to be in, all at the same time. You know what I mean? But overall, it was a good run. It's been a good run, so I'm happy.
It's interesting because I was thinking this, like, you and I both have been raving since 18. I mean, like,
Mhm.
technically, I've been to EDM shows before 18, but like 18 for real, for real.
Yeah,
I'm 30 now, so it's like 12 years later, I'm still going to raves, and like, I love that. I needed some music to cleanse my soul, and I think it did that this past weekend because are we gonna get into our little? We haven't talked since the election on the podcast.
yeah. Where? What are the words here? I just,
Okay,
you go
so
first.
I'll start off because I've thought about it. So we talked about the election and then I edited the podcast and I was like, oh man, I feel like I didn't get this point across clearly. Was when I was like saying I was calm because I felt like people had as much information as they needed to make a decision. I still think that's true, which makes the results sadder and scarier for me. Like I think that it's like, oh no, like we know this man's racist. We know these policies are going to affect marginalized people. Like everyone knows that. And they're like, no, it's okay though. Like I don't really give a fuck. Like I still want to vote this way. And so that I've been coming to terms with that.
We talked about how the year before, or like the 2016 one, our first thing was just like kind of denial. This one hit immediately. The main thing was disappointment. I I don't I don't know if people really just like really hate women, or like what the deal is, like how I think it made me realize how deeply like misogyny is rooted in culture and in politics, and it's just something like, I guess, because there's been so many movements for like liberation, it's something that you take for granted almost. And this election, I think, I saw this girl's TikTok said, it broke my heart, but it cleared my vision. Um, and that's how I
Mm-hmm.
feel about it. I feel sad for a lot of communities that are vulnerable right now. Like I will say, I didn't immediately feel the same impact as I did before, because before I was on DACA and I knew like, well, now we know that man wants to end that. Like now we know he's coming
Yeah.
for everybody. So it's like that's just something that is fact now, and I just feel so sad for so many people. And I think that that was my biggest thing, where I was like, I don't know how to teach someone else empathy. You can't
Right.
teach empathy, right? You can't teach that. So I try to get out there and like kind of share my 2 cents, because obviously now people that feel super vulnerable, I mean, they're not going to come out and be like, I'm on DACA, I'm on this, because now that adds an extra factor of vulnerability
Right.
to come out and be like, I'm in this position. Mostly now, like most of the country does not give a shit about you. Yeah, that's been hard to come to. It definitely woke me up. I think that I have been really worried about myself, and in that sense, I it put me back into perspective of, okay, like what's my mission, what's my purpose, what's my goal here. I had a lot of people. Well, I became political on the internet like real quick. It's always been there. I just feel like
Yeah.
because I have been posting so much other things about like my brand and stuff like that, people I guess didn't know it was there. But suddenly, like I really tuned in, pedal to the metal. And a lot of people reached out to me kind of like looking for like resources specifically like for immigrants. I had a lot of like DACA recipients reach out to me saying like they were scared, like their families, like some of their family members just weren't being understanding. And overall, it just made me really sad. It made me disappointed. It made me look at some people who were like, well, we're all friends. Why can't we just all get along? Not in a different light, but in one where you have to tell someone that they're accountable for their choice and what their vote means for other people, right? I think like
Yeah.
a lot of people were voting in a sense of, I have the privilege to choose to try something different, because that's what a lot of people were saying. Like, I wasn't happy with Biden, so I'm choosing something different now. And I just think like there's a lot of privilege in being able to like, well, I just want to spruce it up. you know?
Yeah, it's like it's actually not funny, but it in the same way it's hilarious. Like it's like ironically funny and desperately sad. Some people's it's like as soon as you kind of like break down some things for people, it's like okay, so much of how you voted is your perception on things, not how things like actually are. And like for instance, the biggest thing that people I feel like have been getting wrong and has been making me so sad is the image that we're painting of women who get abortions, and it's like like basically like slut shaming and being like, oh well, you had the choice to have sex, so you should have this baby. When and then when you give them like instances of other of the multitude of reasons why women get abortions, they're like, oh no, like this policy isn't going to affect those people. And it's like, why wouldn't it? What are you talking about? Like, we're not going to be able, there's not going to be a doctor that was like, oh no, we're going to save your life because you're a mother and you're not a slut. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to give you an abortion. Like, that's not how bans work. And it's like the same thing with like, with immigration, where it's like, I feel like people think that they are going to pick and choose very specifically who's going to be mass deported. That's not how that's going to happen. A mass deportation, we're not going to look at the content of someone's character on whether they're a good person or a bad person. You know, like that's not how this is going to happen. So I guess I get a little worked up and sad because it's like, oh, this is going to affect so much more people. And I think that people think that only bad people who deserve to be like punished are going to be affected by like Trump's policies.
I don't even think they think that far ahead, to be completely honest with you. I think I mean, like a lot of people that have the are outrightly saying like, I voted for another one in like a blue state. I'm like, you've lived in a blue state your whole life. There's things and rights that you have never even thought of. You know what I mean? But like, we're not free until every bitch is free. Okay, you have to think about the
Exactly.
team. We're not individuals. We have to think about the collective. Um, so that got me a little work. I've passed every stage of grief. I probably
Yeah.
that there is. I was sad. I was angry. I was like, you know what? Give it to them. Give them what they want. Take it away. Like what's
Yeah.
the that like set it on fire. Obviously I don't want that because it would really impact a lot of the most vulnerable, and that's not what we want here. But it does. It's a frustrating situation. But it did bring us to today's topic.
Expect more, baby. Expect more. Are you ready to get into it?
I am.
Well, thanks for your concern.
Okay, expect more, babes. Okay, this has been a running theme that I have had now that I'm older and wiser. I think I expected very little from other people when I was younger. And I
Yeah.
think from every person and institution in your life, you can expect more. One of them is expect more from your parents.
Oof.
I know this one's hard. I know this one's hard, but I think that there's like a narrative that just housing and feeding you is like enough or providing you with your bare necessities, but you can expect more and it's okay if you didn't get that. And I think that was the most liberating thing for someone to tell me is that your parents could have tried at their hardest, but you still deserved more. I just wanted to tell that to someone if they've never heard that.
I do think with a lot of healing, I have accepted that my parents did the best they could. However, yeah, I think in terms of you finding kind of like your own voice in that, it's like, well, what I was giving was their best, but I do deserve more than that. And finding that in the relationships in your life moving forward. And maybe that is something even in the relationship that you have with your parents. I think a lot of the conversations that I've had with my parents as an adult, like no longer living in the same city, has actually started with them being like, did I fail you in any way? Is there anything that you resent or like that you want to talk about? Which I think, as part of like my parents is like very self aware. They've done a lot of growth like individually. So I'm proud of them too. They're just people too.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Um, but not everybody does that. I know that some people have parents that are not doing any growth or self work. And you, I think, are totally valid for saying, here are the new expectations to our relationship. And this is not just for you, this is for anybody in my life. You failed to give that to me when I was younger. I forgive you for it. I accept it. But now moving forward as an adult, this is how I want to be treated by anybody, you included.
Yes, expecting more from your parents as you become an adult. Like it's okay. Like just because the status quo is this is how my parents used to communicate with me, it's okay to expect more now that you're a grown up. And I think also like it's okay to expect support regardless of your parents' personal opinions on what you're doing. Like, obviously, if you're doing dangerous activities and then looking out for your best interest, that's different than like not wanting to support you because it doesn't align with the life they wanted for you, or how, their own personal preferences, whatever it may be. Like, it's okay to expect support. You're a grown up. You are living your own life.
Yeah. And I mean, this comes with like, I don't know, a little bit of leniency because I know some people get like still financially supported by their parents. I think when I became independent, it was kind of like you can take me as I am or you cannot see me. Which I don't know if like that's the right approach, but I will say with a lot of people I have in my life who are still in the closet or have like a hard time being accepted by a parent, you gotta be tough. Like you almost have to be willing to lose that in order to gain that. Like you do, you're just like this is who I am, and I don't need you. Like I love you, but like this is like I don't know, like obviously I there's a hate and love situation where when I say like I didn't ask to be here, but truly like we did not ask to be here. So being born into a set of expectations and values that I didn't choose is not my responsibility to uphold.
Preach. I think sometimes we kind of fall into what's like normal is what has been, And if normal makes you not normal, like, I mean, the status quo, if that makes you happy and your relationship with your parents, it makes you happy and fulfilled and you like the way things are, then no need to change. But I think instead of just accepting that this is how my parents are, this is how our relationship will always be, there is room for growth. And I think at least give some people the benefit of the doubt, because I know, at least in my experience, like, I had a really hard time setting boundaries or like being honest about how certain things were treating me. But me and my parents' relationship are so much better because I gave them the opportunity to change. Not everyone's gonna take that opportunity, okay? And it might be a little bit of a struggle. But if you never even speak it, it will never come into existence. Your parents won't magically change how they treat you if you never talk to them about it. Because up until now, it's been okay.
Another place where I feel we should expect more is out of our education. We are placed in whatever institution you may be in. I think it's fair to speak up when you don't feel like there's something being met. And you're getting like a teacher on her movie day. Okay.
Yeah. I think some of my biggest regrets going to a predominantly white institution was times I wish I would have said something. I was just reflecting that a lot of the times it was just me and this one other brown dude. Shout out to Devin. We were. I'm not even exaggerating. I think we were probably the only people of color within our like major or cohort. And there's just times I wish I would have said something. Just wish I would have said something. Wish I would have expected more, and maybe not always like raising my hand right in the middle of a seminar and like speaking out, but there was other avenues I probably could have explored, other conversations I could have had.
I've had a tougher time speaking up in interpersonal relationships, but for some reason, any type of bad leadership, I've never been able to shut the fuck up. And I think that's like the one thing I'm proud of, that I've always been a little fighter. There's so many places of injustice that you notice in your education. There just are within like racism, ableism, anything. And sometimes people will gaslight you. Like when I was in the third grade, I had just gone into freaking America, and a lady told me to like I couldn't speak Spanish in the playground, and I was like, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair that I'm being discriminated against because I'm smarter than her and I know two languages. Okay, so I said something, and maybe it didn't necessarily like she gaslit me. She told all the teachers that I didn't understand her, but it never happened again, right? So maybe that is the catalyst of change. That maybe as our almost president said, change sometimes takes time. Okay, it takes time, and it does. And maybe you don't get exactly the outcome that you want the first time, but it does create a different dynamic. And now, I checked her. Whether she wanted to admit it or not, she was checked. And hopefully it didn't happen to another kid.
I think that's huge. That's what I mean, is that like with a catalyst, you never know what is going to be the catalyst. And maybe if I had said something, it would have been like the fifth time someone had said something, and that would have been the time that kind of like put it over the edge, or at least it just like puts a little seed into someone's mind because it might not even be something that they're aware of. Honestly, with expect more, I think we're living in a time where you have to have a growth mindset and you have to, I guess, expect more from yourself when it comes to learning. Like, I hate when people say, like, oh, I could never do that. You know, it's like, babes, I'm telling you a lot. Okay, I don't know if I want to have this hot of a take, but there's some,
Listen.
as someone in tech, I think that people have a vested interest in telling you something is really, really hard and you can't do it. And I think also that there's a little bit of ego that comes into, I can do this and you can't. And so, like, for instance, I know in my education, I had like a couple of situations where it was like, oh, yeah, like that specialty's easier, or oh, you would have a really difficult time in this program. You know, I would have friends be like, "Oh, you could never do engineering," you know, and like I may or may not have like listened, right? And like you hear this stuff, and then as someone who works in tech has taught themselves how to code and now like does that for a living, I thought it was gonna be impossible to do because of what people were saying about it. And I just think that if you have a growth mindset, you can teach yourself anything. And it's like, don't let someone saying something is hard deter you from doing something. I think you should like expect more from yourself, because if you're even thinking about doing it, I feel like you have the skills, and we have little computers in our hands and colleges on YouTube, you know what I'm saying? Like courses all over. So expect more from yourself. You can do it.
Yeah, expect more from yourself in general. I think with this election in general, like made me reflect a lot. And like I don't think anyone's a perfect person, obviously including myself, and that's why like sometimes just like reflecting is so important to see in the places where maybe the idea that you have of yourself and like who you want to be isn't aligning up with who you are, right? And I think like we can give some grace to the fact that we're growing, but in what rate are we really growing? Right? Sometimes I think because we are used to certain patterns and behaviors and sticking into environments of comfort, we don't challenge ourselves enough, or at least myself enough. And that's something like maybe right now is like I'm expecting more from myself. How am I representing my community? How am I, like advocating for my community? How am I interacting in my social groups to reflect my character and my values? Because if I'm in a social group where I feel comfortable because they all look like me and they speak my language, but they say some problematic shit about another group of people, how am I changing the dynamic of the friend group that I'm in? That is my responsibility, right? Or am I gonna sit in this friend group in comfort knowing that I'm seen as like an equal, but maybe there's some rooted issues in the background that are being practiced within my own friend group, within my own environment? And how can I be the catalyst for change within that group, or if I need to go become a leader in another group in another community to better myself,
To better yourself, I mean, honestly, I've been thinking a lot about like this morning, you know. I was like, you know what? I'm going to use what's happened recently as like a catalyst to like be a better person. And in a weird way, I was like, I just cannot let like a white supremacist be like hotter, smarter, more eloquent, more successful, richer than me. Like I just can't let it happen. And that's been driving me lately. You know, it's like I can't have a white supremacist be
Spite.
more like spite. Like I can't let someone be more disciplined than me that's out to hurt my community. You know what I'm saying? Like I gotta double triple down.
That is some tea. That yeah, that's
I mean,
yeah.
that's just how I feel. That's just how I feel. Cause it's like, I mean, there's a lot of people out there doing a lot of bad work, okay? But they're working nonetheless, you know? And I have to like, if I want to make a difference, I can also make the same amount of impact for good, but I have to put in the work in. It's not going to happen on its own by me sitting here twiddling my thumbs, doom scrolling on TikTok. That's not how work happens.
No, that is definitely not. That's definitely not. I feel that. I think we took our expecting more from ourselves in two different directions. I was like community involvement, like,
Well,
and you're
it's
like No, they're not beating me.
There's a lot of things. Like, I've been really trying to, like, even before the results of the election happened, I've been really focused on trying to, like, reach out to people in my community. Cause let me be honest, I am more introverted than I think I let on. And, like, I think I used to have view myself as like extroverted. La, da, da, da. I love getting energy from other people. I fucking like being inside my apartment. Love it. I love it. I like hanging out. I like fucking painting. I like da 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 da. But I still need to get out and be a part of a community like IRL, okay? And community of like-minded people. And how can I do that? By supporting Black-owned businesses. This is at least for me, supporting Black art, just going out there and not getting towards my roots, but it's like be more an active member instead of just kind of like a bystander that pops in 3 times a year, you know?
Word. 100%. I think this is something that I miss about being in like part of an institution. Like at least in school there were like avenues for me to get like more involved. And I think like as an adult in like a new community, like I haven't been able to do that specifically like in New York. Like I just haven't felt like I can go up to like a Latino center in my neighborhood and be like, hi, like I'm not from here, but like I really want to help out until like now where I'm like I feel like my discomfort in doing that is not enough of an excuse for me not to do that. So I need to get over myself and I just like need to get there and just, whatever the gaps are where they need a little Latina, like I will be there.
Hell yeah, baby.
Hell yeah. I think inspecting more from others. I hate that the bar is so low in relationships lately.
Ugh.
Like the bar is just on the floor and it's really sad. So you'll need to start raising the standard because some people will really have the audacity to be like, I don't owe you anything. And I'm like, to be a decent human being, to be kind, to be respectful. Like that's like maybe the bear. I think Ella said it best. If we all expected a little bit more out of each other, the world would be a better place. And I
Hell
agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to dating and like a significant other, I feel like society tells us, specifically women, like you need a man at any cost because like the worst thing you can be is a cat lady, is what they put out there. You talk to cat ladies, they're having a great time, but that's not nonetheless. But I think that societal pressure to have a man makes the bar really low and people take like the lowest common denominator when it comes to standards for relationships. So it's like I've even had people say like, I might complain about something. They're like, "Oh, well, you're so lucky that he does the dishes." Bitch, those are half his dishes. What the fuck do you mean? What do you mean I should be thankful that he fucking does housework? Thankful? Now, I will say he doesn't live here, so the fact that he does do housework is kind of cute. But anyways, my whole point is that people always go to the lowest common denominator. No, if you want more, it's okay to expect more, and if that narrows your dating pool, that's okay.
People will beat it. I swear to God. The second I started saying no to these low ass energy losers, I'm sorry, but that's what I will call them, that offer absolutely nothing but taking from me and my peace, and instead telling people, I'm gonna get to know you slowly. And, like I have a really busy schedule and just kind of, you have to show people how you treat yourself to show them that's the bar. So it's like if I'm providing all these like things for myself and I am actively telling you that I don't even need you, they get that, dude. They really do.
Not only do they get that, but it's like when your dating pool gets smaller, the people you're eliminating are like scrubs, okay? That's the
Yeah.
best way I can put it. Like I've dealt with some scrubby of the scrub men, and nothing will lower your prospects, your life, your mental health and well-being than dating someone who does not treat you right, okay? I'm telling you, can be detrimental to your future and health. So I think it's totally okay to expect more, and whatever your expectations are, it might take a while to find somebody. Even though I actually think that people fall in line. I think you'd be surprised. Back to what you say. I think you'd be surprised how many people fall in line, and like people I think human beings kind of automatically go to the lowest amount of effort they can give towards an activity, right? Like
Mhm.
when you're at a job and they set the bar here, most people go here or like a little bit above. But if they set the bar higher, you end up going, the standards are higher, right? So if you're very clear and concise with your boundaries and what you want, I think it's okay to expect more, quote unquote. But this is your life, babes. You're the captain of this ship. So whatever you want out of life, I think you're allowed to ask.
I think part of expecting more from others goes with expecting more from yourself. It's like having a commitment to stick to your boundaries. It's like they can't meet it. Okay, like that's just not it. And you have to be like so firm in that because once there's wiggle room in that and people know that, they're not going to like rise to the occasion because they know they don't have to. Like
Mhm.
and that's the thing with a lot of like ongoing relationships with the same issues. It's like he knows you're not leaving, he knows you're not going to
Yeah.
because he keeps doing it and doing it and doing it and hurting you and hurting you and hurting you. And you have taught this person that regardless of that, you are going to stand by it. Your presence is the most important thing that you can give to somebody. That is the most precious thing you have. Like your presence in somebody's life. So it, like expect more from yourself by saying I'm gonna withhold my boundaries. This is how I want to be treated. This is how I'm gonna act, and then match it. Like and other people will also be like, oh well, that's what she's expecting from me. And I have a lot of respect for people that can admit that they can't meet that. You know, they're like,
Mhm.
I'm not at a place where I think I can meet your expectation. Then you have to let them go, and that's when you expect more from yourself by upholding that.
And honestly, sometimes it just comes down to incompatibility. I honestly think that you'll find people that are very willing to give what you're asking for. It's just, and we all, so that's why compatibility comes into play, right? Like high standards, I actually don't even like that term. It's just like a different level of, high standards, like, oh, you have too high of standards. Ew, no. Sure, whatever. I'll wear that. I'll wear too high of standards, but it's like, no, this is just like my expectations of a relationship because, first of all, I'm a dope person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that my time is, and time spending with me is a commodity that I can't give out to everyone. So, baby girl, this is what I want.
I think the term high standards is so stupid, and that was probably
Yeah.
coined like by a man because that's just having standards. I've never met anyone that has been like pushed on like, oh, she has high standards or she's like whatever, who is just somebody that knows what they want. If you meet somebody, they know what they want, they know how they want to be treated. That's just a standard. Usually anything below that is you don't know yourself, you are not sure how you want to be treated yet, you're still learning, you're still growing. Those things are valid. But like to put women to say like she has really high standards, no, she just like is secure, knows what she wants, and knows what she does not want.
And I will say that it's a lot easier to like stand on business when you love yourself and you know you're the best version or like a really great version of you. I
Yeah.
think that it's so easy to be like, bye, bitch, when you're very happy, don't need anybody else, and you're like, hey, brother, I don't need a project because my life is together. I'm the captain of this ship, and the ship is going in the right direction. I do not need you, an iceberg, in my path.
You're either an ongoing boat on the side, or you can get out of my way. The muster over there.
Literally, like, if you want to be co-captain, you better have the skills and the resume to help steer this ship, babes.
There's a lot of other things that go into relationships, but I do believe that expecting more from others just really comes down to like communicating what it is that you want to need. And also, I guess, in the accountability for yourself is like if you're communicating something that you're going to do or how you're going to act, you are creating an expectation for another human to rely on that, right? Like people don't expect, like I think we all expect basic kindness and respect from other people, but other than that, like sometimes I just feel like I've been called crazy when they're like, I don't know why you would expect this from me. I'm like, well, because you communicated that you were going to do it, and you have done several of these things before. So now when you don't do it and suddenly you don't owe me anything, it does kind of make me think that I may not be the problem because you have created this expectation for yourself, right? So if you're failing to meet expectations from others, you should reflect on what you have prompted them to expect from you and to communicate if you don't feel like you can meet that.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think also, like, I just want to say it's okay for as you get older to expect more from your current relationship. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might have grown as a person and things have changed, and maybe some things that were cool 5 years ago you didn't even think about 5 years ago are now very apparent and are a problem. I think it's okay to walk away and take your new standards or whatever the fuck we want to call your whatever. I think a lot of people fall into the sunken cost fallacy of I've put in X amount of time into this and you don't want to start over. And what I've kind of learned recently is you don't really start over like a blank slate. You start over like a new page of a journal. You still have everything else, you know? I think we really look down upon starting over. And I think it's because we think like it's going to be completely new, but you take all of your experiences that you learned to make this new situation better. So it's not really starting over.
I was just thinking about that today because I saw some in New York. You always get new people on TikTok that are like, I just moved here and I don't have friends. And it's like all these people that don't have friends meeting up. Now, I've been in New York in 3 years and I have friends. But I remember when I first came to New York and like your main group of people that you meet or the community that you live in really dictate the type of life that you have. So I was like, what if I just met up with a whole bunch of new people? You know what I mean? Like that could be a little
Yeah.
weird because I've been here 3 years and I do have friends, but also it would be a whole, not even a new start, but like just like a literally a new page of people, of experiences, because you can have a new experience within your life literally any moment that you choose to.
Literally, and it's like I think that's probably like you can have a new like you don't have to scrap your current relationship even or your current relationships with people, but you could have a new chapter in the relationship and like evolve and expect more from the current relationship. And I mean that with anyone. Like we talked about parents, you know, your career, you could think about your career, your friends, yourself. Like you could expect more and evolve and change and have a different relationship that's better because you've learned, you've grown, and you're happier right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Period.
One more thing, honestly, these are trying times, all right? We're going to need to stick together. So, my heart really goes out to people. I think it's been really tough for me because I want to I have so much empathy and I wish I could save everyone, but that's unfortunately like something I don't have capacity for, but I definitely can be here for people as much as I can be in within a community. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't be here for every single human being in this entire world, but I could be here for definitely more. So if you're listening to this, like I'm thinking of you subconsciously of people who are really gonna be it's gonna be a trying time. Let's be real.
Yeah. And if you're going through it and you need a buddy and you're in a community that maybe you don't identify with, you can hit me up. I love to yap and I love to listen.
Literally.
So
That's what I meant by that.
okay.
So you can reach out. I love it. Thank you guys so much for listening this week. We really appreciate you being here. Make sure that you like, subscribe, send this to a friend, and you can follow us on social media. Thanks, number 4, your concern. And I'm at Ella L. Tudor.
I'm at Bernice Diaz M. Hey, toodles.
Toodles, bye.